On the outside, you might just see a happy child playing. A child excited to explore the world. You might not see a child with cystic fibrosis until you start to see its symptoms as they progress over time. But if you could see inside, you would see the damage taking place. Even before you see the symptoms progress and become visible on the outside. Don't wait to see cystic fibrosis. On the outside.
Καλημέρα σε όλους.
Good morning, one and all. We'd like to thank you for being here with us, and a very good morning to those of you who are attending on the line. My name is Anna Spinu. I'd like to welcome you to our conference, Cystic Fibrosis Preparing for the Future, which is organized by the Hellenic Cystic Fibrosis Association. Today we also celebrate the World Day for People with Disabilities. We are celebrating. So this conference is under the auspices of the municipality of Athens, the Eurodis Rare Disease Europe, and CF Europe, Cystic Fibrosis Europe. So every year our association organizes this conference, and we'll have speakers, our doctors, specialized experts on the disease, healthcare professionals who are going to inform us about the latest developments regarding the disease and will give us instructions. We'll talk about transplants. At the end of each session, you will be able to put your questions. Those of you on the internet, you can send us. Now, our conference is being live streamed on YouTube and the website of our own association. So please use the functions of the internet to put your questions. So today we celebrate our 40 years of presence. We had planned to provide to offer a commemorative plate to Mr. Adam. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend. And we'll also have, at the end of our conference, a presentation of the first interactive children's book for cystic fibrosis, which is an initiative of our association for children with cystic fibrosis, for carers, and anyone who would like to know more about cystic fibrosis. So we'll start. And we'll start with the brief addresses by the officials. Good morning. My name is Konstantina Yanlaki. I'm a parent of 8-year-old Dargiris suffering from cystic fibrosis. We'd like to welcome those of you attending online. Now we'll start with the brief addresses by our officials. Anna, would you like to start? Yes? Okay. So our first brief address is by the Minister for Health, Mr. Michalis Christochoidis. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend. However, he has sent us a written message that we are going to read, supporting through time the patients with cystic fibrosis.
Good day, dear participants. Unfortunately, prior obligations do not allow me to attend. It is a great pleasure and honor, however, to greet the conference organized by the Pan-Hellenic Association of Cystic Fibrosis. Such conferences provide the opportunity to highlight and project in a scientific and sound way important aspects and dimensions of this serious disease. a disease that already from childhood prevents important daily activities and often deprives people of life itself. In this daily and constant struggle for survive, patients and their families are not alone. Specialized and qualified scientists and health professionals are near them, guiding them, taking care of them, keeping them alive. The state, the government needs to provide to health professionals the qualifications and tools required to support them in their difficult task, especially in terms of providing qualitative services to patients. The Ministry for Health does this, and I pledge to you that we will keep on doing it. We monitor developments and the new knowledge, and we pledge to take all measures and decisions as necessary to ensure every innovative and revolutionary treatment to patients. Also, all tools and mediums that will support the work of health professionals. At the center is patients and human life. No planning, no political choice is effective unless it takes into account the needs and the problems that we know are there. However, there are also solutions that I would like to listen to and discuss with scientists and with patients' associations. The patients themselves and their families, known from first-hand experience the problems, and every public debate should include them. Thank you for this honorary invitation. I wish you every success in the proceedings of this conference, but also in any other initiative that you assume to foster the visibility of cystic fibrosis and to support patients. Let us of us work together to create a future of health and quality of life. Thank you. The Minister for Health, Michalis Chrysochoidis. We thank the Minister, and we continue our cooperation with the Ministry for Health through all these years. It has been very helpful, and we will move on to the next address. CEO Eurodis, Plant Diseases Europe, Jan Lacam. He is with us remotely.
Jan, how are you?
Thank you. I am very well. Thank you very much, Anna, for your invitation this morning.
Oh, thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like first to express the warmest wishes for the 40th anniversary of the Hellenic Cystic Fibrosis Association, and to congratulate you and all the Hellenic Cystic Fibrosis Association and its volunteers in the last decades for the great work that you've been doing. You managed to do successful advisory advocacy to change what it means to live with cystic fibrosis in Greece, to improve the quality of life of the persons living with cystic fibrosis and their families, and to improve access to diagnostic, to treatment, to care, to lung transplants. It's also important that Rare Disease Greece, which now exists in Greece, gathers together all the rare disease patient groups existing in Greece. So it's very important that the Hellenic Cystic Fibrosis Association, as you are, is a member of Rare Disease Greece and take an active part in order to develop a national strategy and to be part of the European and global processes on rare diseases. This will improve the situation of persons living with cystic fibrosis in Greece, because then you're not alone, but you can count on each other and represent a critical mass in Greece and a political voice. I'd like to share with you a few reflections, but before, I'd like to start by saying that I'm the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Eurodes, Rare Disease Europe, and in fact, I am one of yours because I'm a father of a young adult affected by cystic fibrosis. I have 3 daughters, and the oldest one, Colleen, has cystic fibrosis. She's now 33 years. She had a double lung transplant 5 years ago, and she's currently waiting for a kidney transplant. One of the family members will give her a kidney. And she has also diabetes and many other comorbidities, as I am sure many of you have. And exactly like in the video that we just heard, You could not see it. If you was coming in the room where you are, you will see just a young, beautiful woman who is a lawyer working in international affairs. And she's a hard worker. She works 4 days a week, but she works hard and she has a good social life. And she's able to say that she's happy in spite of all the huge care that she has to take every day, every week, every month, like all of you. For that reason, I have been also, like some of you, have been a volunteer in the French Cystic Fibrosis Association, VANC pour la mucoviscidose, and I was the vice president for research for almost a decade. Before, with my wife, we decided to have a third child, and part of the negotiation was to stop to be a volunteer in an association in addition to work in another association. But today, I still continue once in a while to help this French association. Recently, we had a seminar on the long-term strategy to assess the impact of the new treatment and what it means in terms of new challenges to identify where the focus of the attention of the association should be, and also how to prepare for bigger changes as maybe there will be less volunteers, less attention for cystic fibrosis. I'd like to mention here one thing that I can see at the European level, and that's important for you, is that there is a lot of discussion at the European level about what is called the unmet medical needs, to prioritize the development of medicines, to prioritize research, to prioritize allocation of money for the diseases where there is not yet treatments. And I am sure that for you, as for me, I will consider cystic fibrosis as one of these areas of unmet medical needs, because even though there is important treatments that now have been approved in the last years, we see that we are far from having a satisfactory solution, let's say, for all patients. There is the patients who don't have mutations for which there is treatment, but even when you're taking the tree therapy currently, you can still continue to develop difficulties. You can go at the hospital. You can be stopped from going to work. So we're far from having solved everything, and we still don't have a cure. But however, that's for us. That's how we see it as clinicians, as parents, as patients ourselves. But whole society around us, including scientific, including policymakers, they think the problem is solved for cystic fibrosis and that we need to move to the next disease. So we need to be very careful and to advocate very strongly to express what are the current realities of living with cystic fibrosis, even with the treatments, and what are the solutions, the pathways needed for the next years, so that there is unmet health and social needs, which are recognized. With that, I'd like to highlight that cystic fibrosis is one of the diseases at the European and even global level, but particularly at the European level, where there has been huge gains. I don't know exactly, but more or less, when you look at the observatory, we can consider that we have gained 6 months of life every year in the last 30 years. That's huge. It's huge. And the perspective for the child we were born 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and the perspective of being born today with cystic fibrosis are obviously very different. And this was thanks, first and foremost, to the organization of healthcare, the multidisciplinary consultation, the specialization of cystic fibrosis clinics, the networking of doctors between themselves at the national level and now at the European level, the sharing of good practices in diagnostic and care. So bringing the knowledge together and applying the existing knowledge, but also generating new knowledge on how to care for persons living with cystic fibrosis or children living with cystic fibrosis. And there is a model here which can apply for other rare diseases. And it is first this improvement on the diagnostic and the newborn screening, on the care, the management, the day-to-day management, and the strategies of autonomy of patients, therapeutic education, physical therapy at home, IV cure of antibiotics at home, which have been able to gain these 6 months of life expectancy until there is now the transformative treatments, which hopefully are helping us to gain much more, maybe 9 months, 10 months, 12 months per year, until maybe we will live a normal life expectancy with the disease or with a cure. Now, to conclude, I would like to highlight how your action for cystic fibrosis in Greece is linked to action at the European level in cystic fibrosis, but also what you do in Greece with the other rare diseases is linked to a bigger movement and policy at the European level on rare diseases. You are connected to the CF Europe, Cystic Fibrosis Europe, which is your European federation. And once in a while, I also do some volunteer work for them to help them to create, for instance, a community advisory board on cystic fibrosis to engage with the different companies for the development of their treatments, but also to create the roundtable of companies in order to attract funding to the Cystic Fibrosis Europe and be able to develop more activities. And there is huge challenges, obviously, on access to care, simply not the diagnostic, the newborn screening and the care in Europe at large. There is still huge inequalities, obviously, across EU, but also even more so across Europe at large. And that's an area to focus on. But it's important to continue to influence from that platform at European level the future development of medicines, but also the organization of healthcare. As the number of lung transplants, for instance, will decrease for cystic fibrosis, we need to ask ourselves how we should be organized at the European level. And can we still maintain lung transplant unit for cystic fibrosis in every country in Europe? Or should we organize ourselves in a more rational way so that there is some teams which are doing regular procedures and can deliver a quality transplant where you go? So we'll have many challenges of this sort. We certainly also have challenges ahead when new therapies, maybe gene therapy, maybe CRISPR, whatever the strategy that will work. But when there will be the curative treatment coming in, it will be an even more difficult debate to have access to it in Greece, like in the other countries. We will have to justify what is the gain for the healthcare system financially to pay for that higher cost treatment compared to the existing cost of treatment today, compared to the absence of school or absence from work, or the absence of the parents from work, and etc. And you have the European Reference Network for the lung rare diseases, of which cystic fibrosis is part, and that's a wonderful asset. We will have soon also the clinical research networks for rare diseases, and there will be one, obviously, around the lung, and that's important to follow. And all of them, all these networks are sharing progressively the same standard, the full interoperability of data. We're still far from that, because the problem is to collect the right data. And that's another area where an association like yours is important, to make sure that your clinicians in the hospital have the right resources to be supported, to collect the data and enter the data in the registries in order to be able to share. We can have the best standard of the world, the best interoperability. If we don't collect quality data at the clinic where the doctors and the patients are, we are not transforming the care. And last but not least, is just to say that now we are entering a new phase of policy development for rare diseases. You may know that in 2019, a text was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly for universal health coverage, which is a beautiful objective. It's an utopia somehow, but it's important. All the member states in the world have engaged in saying, we will provide universal health coverage to certain population. And together, all the patient groups, we succeeded to obtain that rare diseases are part of that universal health coverage, which means that any person with a rare disease in the world is supposed, probably long term, but to have the right services and the right financial coverage for their needs. But that has started in many countries, obviously in Europe since a long time, in many countries around the world also, and in an increasing number. And I can tell you, I can see progress every month in that direction, which is very encouraging. And that commitment of the United Nations was done again with all member states this year in September in a second political declaration on universal health coverage. We have also gained in 2021 a United Nations resolution to recognize the challenges of the 300 million persons living with a rare disease and their families. And this is a more detailed document about the needs and about the type of actions that member states should engage and that the different agencies of the UN system will engage. And we are now already en route in working on a WHO, World Health Organization resolution on rare diseases, which we hope to be adopted in 2025, and 2 years later to adopt a global action plan on rare diseases, looking toward 2040. So, and that here there will be objective goals. And I insist on that because I think that for Greece, that's important. We're trying to obtain goals at the global level, global goals in a European action plan for rare diseases, which we hope after the European Parliament election and the new Commission, it will be adopted. There will be a European action plan for rare disease in Europe and a new generation of national plan and strategies in every country. I know you recently adopted a strategy in Greece because I was part of some of your conferences and listening to the colleagues working on that. And that's great, that's fantastic. But your next generation of plan needs to have goals and goals aligned with these European and global goals. And that's great because it helps to federate our actions. It helps to have much more efficiency to improve the survival, the quality of life of living with a rare disease, the inclusion of society, the potential to live or full potential, and to live with independent autonomy. Thank you very much. I wish you a great conference. I saw your program. I was particularly pleased by the fact that you're also looking at what's happening in the United States and you're covering the different challenges of the moment across. And I really praise your efforts. And although I cannot follow, obviously, presentations in Greek, my spirit will be with you during all that day. And I wish you a very fruitful conference. Thank you.
Dear Jan, I would like to personally thank you. First of all, thank you for your warm wishes about our anniversary of the association. Thank you for sharing your story with CF as a member of our CF family. And first of all, thank you for your contributions. All these years, you are the founder of Eurordis. You have done an excellent job. And I feel very lucky to be a new member of the board of Eurordis, of this great team. Thank you, Jan, for everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. We're happy to have you. Thank you again for the invitation today. Thank you.
Ο κύριος Γιάν Λεκάμ, πολύ σημαντικό που...
Mr. Jan Lekam, it's very important that he participated today. I wish we could have him physically here. Now we give the floor to Mr. Philip Watt, the president of CF Europe. Unfortunately, for technical reasons, he cannot be connected. So now Mrs. Kabordini Theano sent us a written address. If you have the slide, you can put it up. She's the manager of EOP. I'm reading to you the message of EOP's manager. Dear ladies and gentlemen, unrelenting supporters to improve care of cystic fibrosis, I'd like to thank you for this invitation. This meeting is a forum for exchanging views and practices that will contribute to the improvement of life of those suffering from cystic fibrosis and their families. As you know, When there is transparency and a map road, any insecurity is done away with. At AOP, our mission is clear: to facilitate and ensure access to treatment and services. We pledge to availability, access, and affordability of drugs and services associated with cystic fibrosis. You know that AOP actively supports the access of sufferers to modern treatments for cystic fibrosis. We have the pleasure to announce that delivery of drugs at home includes the people suffering from cystic fibrosis. These are some first steps, and I believe that each and every one of you has an important role to play in further actions and steps. This conference symbolizes a collective effort to promote cooperation for a hopeful future. We have a demanding way in front of us. I'd like to wish you every success in the proceedings of your conference. Hopefully, we will listen to proposals that will contribute to change for the best. We thank the manager of AOP warmly.
Ευχαριστούμε την κυρία Καρποδίνη και να πω ότι πριν περίπου 10 μέρες...
Thank you, Ms. Carpodine. 10 days ago, we were invited and had a meeting by the manager of ALB in order to receive more information on the home delivery of treatment. So we will be starting, I think, early December. We are waiting for the ministerial decision to be signed, and we'll let you know about the procedure. It's a very simple procedure. The doctors will need to select during the prescription process the box that will pertain to home delivery. So we'll begin with this home delivery with cystic fibrosis drugs. Now we move on to Ms. Kanaka Christina, who is the president of the Child Institute and a professor of pediatrics, endocrinology with the National University of Athens. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. As you said, as director of the first clinic of pediatrics of the University of Athens in Hagia Sophia Hospital, we do hospitalize children with cystic fibrosis, and we don't know. Okay, I turned the microphone on. Thank you very much. So, good morning once again. As Ms. Pino said, I'd like to thank her for her invitation. I am a professor of pediatrics and pediatric endocrinology and director of the first pediatric clinic of the University of Athens at the Hagia Sophia Children's Hospital. You all know about it. So those of you in Athens, it's the largest children's hospital of the country and of the Balkans. And in fact, we are in the same campus with the Department for Cystic Fibrosis. And on top of that, we have the Child Health Institute. And in the central building, we have the University Pediatric Clinic. So we have an interaction between the patients and our doctors and myself. As a professor of pediatric endocrinology, we treat our children with cystic fibrosis as soon as we have diabetes. Now, let me point out that already my own training and education was in Germany, and in particular in Switzerland, where we had a lot of cases and many different families that we had to help with members with cystic fibrosis. And it's with real pleasure that we see that the treatments have evolved. I'm here under my capacity as president of the Child Health Institute to announce to you that this year we have started in a pilot project a neonatal broadened screening test that includes cystic fibrosis in it. I've brought a presentation with me. Anyway, I want to be needing that. I will give you the presentation.
Ωραία. Θα το διαβάσει.
Ωραία, εδώ είσαι.
Συμβαίνουν αυτά στα ζωντανά. Περιμένουμε λίγο να δούμε. Είναι σημαντικό να δούμε και την παρουσίαση της κυρίας.
It's important for us to be able to see the presentation by Ms. Kanaga in order to receive that information. Now, with the screening, the neonatal screening, we'll have the diagnosis of neonates from the first days of life, because it is important for these children to start treatment as early as possible.
Συγγνώμη για την καθυστέρηση.
I do apologize for this delay, but indeed, my relationship with the Institute is going back many years ago because I was responsible for children with congenital hypothyroidism. Since 2015, I was the deputy president, and the president was Mr. Dudunakis. Already since that time, we tried to have incorporated in neonatal screening the cystic fibrosis, and as of 2020, I am the president of the Child Health Institute, and indeed we have been able to make a reality what is really important for timely diagnosis. Regarding the national program for screening of neonates, you know that as soon as a child is born, on its 4th day, we get the heel prick test, a few drops of blood that are sent to the Child Health Institute. So centrally, we have measurements both for congenital hypothyroidism as well as galactosuria, phenylketonuria, and as of September 2022, there has been the information of the Public Health Experts Committee and the Deputy Minister for Health, and they have approved of this pilot screening program that will be broadened. So you see the neonatal screening in Greece. It will no longer cover only the 4 diseases it used to cover in 1979, but in a pilot project we have added amino acid diseases, oxyurias, beta oxidation of fatty acids, and cystic fibrosis, which, well, the screening works really well, and you know that this was a gap we had to fill in our country. This pilot project will run until 2025, until we are able to show the positive results and until it's fully incorporated in neonatal screening. We see that in 2010, there were already states that used neonatal screening. This expanded in 2020, and we are really proud today to see it in our country. I won't be talking about the substrates of neonatal screening. As you can understand, as I have already mentioned, and in the same building, in the Doxiadis building. Well, Doxiadis was a really famous pediatrician who used to have faith in preventive pediatric medicine, and he was the one who organized the Child Health Institute. So on the top floor, we have the Child Health Institute, and on the ground floor, we have the cystic fibrosis floor. So as soon as we have a positive sample, there is a open contact and there is also the sweat test, and in the campus we have the molecular confirmation of the test. As you can understand, the molecular confirmation does not belong to the initial screening, but there is a constant communication between the members, not only in the Attica region. but also elsewhere in Thessaloniki and throughout Greece. Cystic fibrosis screening has started as a pilot project 4 months earlier. It's working, and we have a very good communication between the treating physicians and the family. So I'll move on to the data here, because I want you to know that there is this possibility for early intervention. I see Mr. Dudunakis showing up, yes. And let us remember that the Child Health Institute, amongst the main works, with the help of the Ministry of Health, in general covers all these diseases whose early detection is of particular importance vis-à-vis the early onset of treatment. Because if we delay the onset of treatment, we have issues with all such diseases, because there might be irreversible changes. So we'd like to warmly thank the Ministry of Health for listening to our own needs and accepting to incorporate the neonatal screening in order to make it a reality and to be able to set diagnosis early enough, avoiding late diagnosis. Mr. Giginoudis is the coordinating director of the program for the national neonatal screening plan, and it pertains to the entire country, whereas the heart and soul of this program is also Dr. Dimitris Platis, who implements this, who is a member of this screening program in Europe. And you can see a whole team of technicians, technologists, etc. The aim being for early diagnosis and treatment. So with these few words, I'd like to thank you, and allow me to point out once again that as a member of the National Committee for Rare Diseases and as a member of the working group of the Ministry of Health for Rare Diseases, our aim is for all rare diseases to be treated in Greece and to be given timely diagnosis and treatment. So I'd like to congratulate your association, and I bid you a very good morning. It goes without saying that our cooperation will be continuous. Thank you.
Mrs. Kanaka, thank you very much. We know that you are very busy, so the mere fact that you found time to came here, not only you came here, but you made a presentation, you prepared a presentation. I want the best for our children. It is important. We are in Europe. I am responsible for rare endocrinological diseases in Europe. And it is important to understand that Greece not only does not lag behind, but we need to cooperate for the best of our patients. You mentioned Eurordis. I recently was appointed to the board. The people do an excellent work there. It is very important to have research and cooperation. Last year, I was in the Czech Republic, and truly we were discussing about that with the representatives of Eurordis. The aim is that the national local ARMs become hubs for all national hospitals, and this in its turn should be fed back into Europe. ARM are European reference networks, specialized centers that have the knowledge and give specialized care to patients. So it's very important to have this interaction. Thank you warmly for being here today. All the best. We wish you all the best. After Mrs. Kanaka, we will give the floor to a very important speaker. We have a great pleasure of having this person with us. Dimitris Zografopoulos is the GPO Data Protection Officer is the title in English, from the Ministry for Health. He will be attending virtually. Thank you very much for waiting, Mr. Zografopoulos. We are looking forward to listening to what you have to tell us. Thank you very much for coming, for attending. Good day. I'll try to speak slowly for the interpreters' sake. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry for not being able to attend in person, but I am at Ioannina. There is a conference here on drugs, so I had to participate virtually. I'd like to thank the Pan-Hellenic Association and Mrs. Spinu personally for the invitation. This is a very significant invitation, and all the more so due to your flattering reference. You said that I make a valuable contribution for the registry of patients with cystic fibrosis. Thank you. I think that the patients themselves have a central role to play, and they have placed their existence under the microscope. I just offered my personal work. I'm very proud for the creation of the registry. A landmark is 6:10 a.m., 8 March 2020. I had finished the draft of the ministerial decision and sent it to all the members of the scientific committee with very few changes. That draft became the final document on establishing the registry of cystic fibrosis. I'd like to thank warmly the scientific team of the registry, which had given me very clear directions about how to draft the decision, and especially the then representative of the Pan-Hellenic Association, Mr. Dimitris Koutoupidis, an endless source of inspiration for us to move forward and properly with setting up the registry. Let me underline some important points about the registry of cystic fibrosis in Greece. My own job is to have a clear assurance on behalf of the Ministry for Health that everything takes place properly, by the book. And I can guarantee that. I know that there have been many reservations and a lot of anxiety in patients for the processing of their personal data. I can guarantee that everything happens according to the fundamental requirements of processing as imposed by the European legislation. The way the ministerial decision was drafted, and that's the importance of my know-how, that's where I come in. We should not forget that cystic fibrosis is perhaps the most frequent rare disease that we record, but it's still a rare disease. The peculiarity of this ministerial decision is that it allows a full registration of the parameters, not only for statistical registration, but mostly with a view to providing medical services and providing the opportunity of access to innovative treatments. This is very important, and this is an endowment, if you like, not only for cystic fibrosis patients, but for all rare disease sufferers. I feel that any registry on rare diseases should be based on the notion of the disease or the group of diseases. We could talk about respiratory diseases if we had not a cystic fibrosis registry. Such a registry should include all those parameters that are crucial and important for the provision of medical services. You've heard Mr. Lecam speaking about the importance of data, not only for rare diseases in general, but in particular for cystic fibrosis. One of the big legal and scientific peculiarities of this registry is that it allows interconnection with the European registry of cystic fibrosis patients. What does this mean? It means a flow of data to and fro. We can send information of patients that have consented to the transmission of their personal data to the European Registry of Patients with Cystic Fibrosis, and we may receive data from the registry, and this is very important for the patients because we have to keep case histories. So we can make cross-checks for the accuracy of data and compared to those kept at the corresponding European registry. I don't want to tire you with legal details. I know that I was invited only to give a short address. Of course, if during the event there are questions from the participants or from the audience, I am at the disposal of the organizing committee. You can just call me and we will organize a connection. I'd like to thank you warmly once again for the invitation. I'd like to wish to each one of you all the best. Be healthy first and foremost. I assure you that I will keep on working non-stop with a view to the proper operation of the National Registry of Patients Suffering of Cystic Fibrosis. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Zografopoulos, we truly thank you. We have Mr. Tsanakas and Mr. Hadjiagor, Mr. Damadia, Mrs. Manika, all the physicians, the doctor, Mr. Paraschakis as well, who were members of the scientific committee for the National Registry of Cystic Fibrosis. A very significant tool for the community, for our doctors, for the patients, that gives us useful information. Thank you very much for your contribution, for all your work in this process. This is one of the first registries of patients that were created in Greece, and the rest are beginning to form. Yesterday, the Ministry for Health announced in the infographics the data from our registry. Perhaps Mrs. Hadjiagor could say a few things later on about the registry, and Mr. Tsanakas. Thank you, Mr. Zografopoulos. Thank you very much. Be well. Take care.
Και θα περάσουμε τώρα στον επόμενο χαιρετισμό.
Now we move on to our next address. Mr. Tsanakas is here with us. So Mr. Tsanakas Ioannis is a professor of pediatrics. He has been working for years in the cystic fibrosis department at the Hippocrates Hospital in Thessaloniki, and he is responsible for the scientific committee of the National Registry for Cystic Fibrosis and the scientific coordinator of Hospital at Home program for children with cystic fibrosis. He's going to share with us very interesting data. Dear friends, thank you very much for your invitation. We hold specific relations, special relations with Stelios Dodonakis, who was the supporter of this whole effort, and Mr. Adam, and I'm really glad to see him. I think that they can't hear you. Yes, okay. So, I'm really glad to have him with us. We are always enthusiastic about his calmness, his patience, and he passed the torch on to us to continue. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to congratulate the association that held the event amidst the Christmas environment that inspired me while we arrived here in the Christmas village. Because as you know, Christmas is all about hope. And what we come to confirm today here is hope on cystic fibrosis. And now you know about the new drugs. Our great joy is that this hope today will be confirmed with figures up till yesterday, we would be working strenuously to give data and to compare Greek patients' condition with the European patients' condition. And you'll see with surprise that we are faring equally well as the European cystic fibrosis patients. This is a leaflet published yesterday by the ministry with statistics, and we owe many thanks to Mr. Zografopoulos, who was the previous speaker, who has been the DBO, and he is there to safeguard the interests of patients to avoid their exposure and their data exposure for to avoid exploitation. So as you can understand, Mr. Zografopoulos works for you, and he's almost invisible. He protects and safeguards all our personal data in order for us to be able to be protected. Another thing I'd like to point out is that I'm also glad because I have passed into a group taking care of patients with severe problems. This is the hospital at home group. This was started out with patients with cystic fibrosis because people had to be hospitalized for 14 days for IV treatment, and this was really, really displeasing because we had children having to be hospitalized. Now we decided gradually to avoid the hospitalization, and we extended this to other severe disease patients. And today we have had this opportunity given by the ministry to provide hospital services at home with hospital doctors, physiotherapists, etc. And if in case of a deterioration, they are able to be hospitalized. So this is your own achievement, because this is where we started from this idea. The last thing I'd like to share with you is another very, very hopeful message. The fact that our children today and patients with cystic fibrosis, as you see through the mathematical and statistical data, have no reason whatsoever to be jealous of the European statistics. Of course, the new treatments have led to us forgetting many days hospitalization of patients. We are really glad because patients with cystic fibrosis can be treated as other patients as well. And this is what brings us joy. Now, I'm really, really glad to see that we too participate in this fight. You as parents are helping your children, and we are we are there to help you and your children, but we get the joy from you that things will move on and they'll be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tsanakas, for taking a plane and coming here to be with us in person. You have offered a great lot to patients with cystic fibrosis all these years, and although you are now an emeritus professor, a retired professor, you still go on doing everything you can for the best of these patients. Let us now give the floor to the next speaker. Through the internet, this is Mr. Loukidis Stylianos, President of the Greek Lung Society. We have a we mutually esteem each other. Lung medicine is closely connected to cystic fibrosis. We're glad to have you. First of all, good morning to everybody. I apologized for not being able to attend. Today I have to be at the Attikon Hospital. What I had to tell you Well, let me begin by saying, and in the last 2 days, the European Lung Society organized an event on cystic fibrosis in adults. As a director of the scientific program of the European Lung Society, this was a personal bet for me. It was organized in Milan with physical participation and remote participation. Everyone warned me against it. It's not going to be successful, they told me. In the end, there were 300 participants, an excellent discussion. And this shows that scientific information has to become very intensive. Cystic fibrosis is now a disease of adults for a great number of years now, which is great joy for us. The Greek Lung Society continues for the 5th consecutive year to finance from its income a scholarship for the cystic fibrosis ward at Sismanoglio Hospital, not only in order to help Mrs. Diamandea, but in order to help all these people acquire skills for the 2nd consecutive year based on a decision that we made last year, and this is the 2nd year that we've been implementing it. We give a clinical scholarship at the Hospital of Papa Nikolaou in Thessaloniki, and as a testimonial to the intention of the society to have 2 dynamic wards in hospitals, to preserve them. We also took an initiative that we will expand to other agencies and bodies. For adult pneumonologists have received the first letters from our society, and shortly we'll send letters to pediatricians and to the transplant unit. So with the new year, we have received positive answers. We will meet together, and 2014 will be a year dedicated to an effort to look at what will happen with adults with cystic fibrosis, and we will institute a cooperation with the ministry. This is a very important initiative. There are very few members of staff. We need to approach and mainly train people with skills in cystic fibrosis. This is a personal bet, a personal wager. I am a director of the the lung ward for 3 years, and I want to expand these efforts with other bodies and agencies. I wish the best to everybody, lots of health, have a happy holiday, and I think that all these things that we have in mind and we want to put in practice, hopefully they will be implemented for the best of our patients. Thank you very much for the honor of inviting me to take part to this conference. Thank you.
Mr. Loukidis, we really thank you for finding the time to join us today. We know that you are really busy. Congratulations on the conference in Milan, because ultimately cystic fibrosis pertains to many people. And now, as you talked about the adult center, well, this is a very important matter. We, as an association, try to contribute towards this direction because adult units are really understaffed. We have 300 patients and only one doctor said there. So you can understand that it is important for the ministry to examine it and to listen to these needs, to reinforce the units, to have specialized pulmonologists that will be supporting us as doctors. And so as for patients to be able to take the care and receive the care that they deserve. So thank you very much, Mr. Loukidis, for your contribution. Thank you. Thank you, too. Now, Mr. Paraskakis, I'm going to introduce Mr. Paraskakis. He is the chairman of the Hellenic Society, Pediatric Respiratory Society. Thank you very much for coming here. Now, thank you. It is a great honor for me to be here in the event on cystic fibrosis, preparing for the future, representing the Pediatric Respiratory Society. We come in contact with the the courageous children suffering from cystic fibrosis and their carers and families. And we see that indeed the messages from research and from science in the past few years are really hopeful. And it seems that the future of these children and the joys for their family will be many. And this makes us really glad, because I have to admit that the pediatric community is particularly proud for this development, since pediatricians have taken a lethal, a fatal disease, and nowadays we are faced with adults who have a much better prognosis. We have secured a much better quality of life for these children, and a smaller burden for their families. This to us is particularly important. So doctors such as Mr. Adam, Mr. Dodonakis, etc., really actually help the children and families with children with cystic fibrosis, and they will definitely be glad, because we have added hope. We are really, really close to new scientific successes. Now, pediatric pulmonologists are always close to children with cystic fibrosis with high qualifications and education and training. So we keep on promising that we'll stand by the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paraschakis, for your beautiful words and for being with us and for having come from so far away, the island of Crete, to be here with us today. That was the end of greetings and addresses, and we will now move on to a very moving part of this event. Today, or not today, this year, we celebrate, as you know, 40 years from our foundation in 1883. All of us were babies compared to where we are today. The association started from its inspirator, Mr. Georgios Adam. It was our first pediatrician, for those of us in Athens who worked at the Children's Hospital, the ward of cystic fibrosis. Adam took our young parents by the hand and told them, let's make an association. It was a very difficult period. When I was born in 1981, my parents were told that I was not going to live. association going. We were small children at the time. We could not help at the time. After 20 years, we became of age. We were the first patients. I remember Yannis Orfanos, Mariliana. We were adult patients at the time when Mr. Dudunakis, I see him behind Marilena. We were young children. We came to your clinic and you took care of us, and Mr. Tsanakas too. We invited Mr. Adam Georgios, who gave the inspiration for the association. Unfortunately, yesterday he called me. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend and he cannot receive the honorary plaque personally. Nevertheless, he asked me to convey his affection. He remembered us by names, every one of us. He remembers all his patients. He told me that he never forgets us. He holds us in his heart. And he promised that when he would get better, I will go there personally and deliver the honorary plaque to his, hand it over to him. So we don't have Mr. Adam with him. We have the plaque, but I want us to stand up. I want Mr. Dudunakis to come here and receive it, and our doctors, and make a beautiful photo. The former boards and the parents take a picture. I'd like to thank all of you because it is thanks to you that we are here today and move into the future.
Κύριε Ντουντουνάκη, θέλετε λίγο να μιλήσετε πριν βγάλουμε...
Mr. Dudunakis, can you say a few words before we take this picture, this photograph? Say a few words. This association was on the occasion of Mr. Adam hosting the European conference of cystic fibration, and he had to have a parents association in order to demonstrate that Greece was not a delayed, backward state of the Orient, but a nation of the West. So we wanted to be modern, and we did it. And today we have a disease which is treatable, at least for 80% of the patients. And we have happy hearts. You have grown up. You are smiling. And we are smiling at you with pleasure. Thank you very much. Let us have a picture here with the plaque. Please, all board members, all doctors, and Mr. Dudunakis, please join me.